This marks the second part of this manhwa. If you haven't viewed the previous parts, you can access it by clicking the I button located above, or the link is provided in description. Let's aim for 200 likes on today's video. To show your support, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's begin our recap video for today's manhwa. In the kingdom's capital, Javan, Cheryl finished her shopping and was told by the manager they will be waiting for her. Come again. As she walked away, she reflected on how refreshing shopping was for relieving stress and wondered where else she might go thrifting. Noticing her expensive clothes and jewelry and realizing she was unguarded, a group of thugs began to follow her. Cheryl quickly detected their presence and considered whether it was time to act on the task her brother had given her the previous day. Cheryl walked down a narrow, dark back alley, seeing the opportunity, the thugs quickly closing in on her. To deter them, she quickly pulled out her wand, cast a fire spell, and blasted the ground nearby to scare them off. Grabbing one of the thugs, she demanded, "She is not going to repeat herself, so listen carefully. Where is the secret casino?" The thugs then led her to an old castle basement. When the thug opened the door, a bright light spilled out, and Cheryl shielded her eyes until she adjusted to the illumination inside. She discovered a bustling scene with a large crowd gathered, betting on either Counts or Aaron. Cheryl examined the board and saw the announcement for the main event, Battle in Bran, featuring Duke Aaron against the alliance of Count Grey and Count Harmon, with betting open for 25 days. Delighted, she declared that she found it. A dwarf then took the stage, introducing the casino and expressing gratitude to the visitors. His speech was abruptly interrupted by someone in the crowd shouting at him and giving him a ticket. Upon hearing the insult, the dwarf became enraged and summoned the guards, who swiftly apprehended the disruptive individual despite his protests. The dwarf then addressed the crowd, clarifying that the man was not being removed for insulting him, but for wasting the valuable time of the customers. He emphasized that the establishment values their customers' time as if it were gold. This statement calmed the crowd. The dwarf then thanked them for their patience and announced that they would resume the predictions for the Battle of Bran, the day's main event and a highlight of the kingdom. After the dwarf's announcement, one person in the crowd placed a bet of 100 gold on Count Alliance, followed by another with a 500 gold bet on the same side. A third person then wagered an astonishing 100,000 gold on Count Alliance, and soon others joined in, quickly filling the Count Alliance bucket with their tickets. Amidst the flurry of bets, Cheryl raised her hand and shocked everyone by betting 3 million gold on Duke Aaron, a surprising choice given his low odds of winning. As she approached the dwarf, he addressed her, remarking that she might have misunderstood the situation, as they only accepted cash. He then inquired with curiosity and a hint of disbelief, "If he may ask, how did she bring 3 million gold in here?" Cheryl questioned the dwarf's skepticism, urging him to accept the money without further questions. To back her words, she picked a check out of her pocket and presented it to the dwarf. The dwarf, upon inspecting the check, recognized it and asked, "This is from the Moria trade group." Cheryl confirmed, explaining that the check was for 3 million gold from the prestigious Moria trade group, one of the 3 major trade organizations in the kingdom. After the interaction, Cheryl used a portal to return to Bran territory. There, she was surprised to find Aaron waiting for her. Curious about his presence, she asked why he was there. Aaron explained that he couldn't just sit idly by, given the importance of the situation, and then inquired about how things had gone. Cheryl informs Aaron that she made the bet at the secret casino as he requested. She then inquires about his progress in convincing Cain, reminding him that he borrowed money using a land deed as collateral. Aaron admits that he hasn't yet spoken to Cain because he was busy approving new citizens. However, he reassures Cheryl not to worry about convincing Cain, quoting the saying, "It's better to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission." Later, when Aaron finally speaks with Cain, Cain angrily confronts him, demanding to know what he means by saying there's no gold mine. Cain is also alarmed by the amount Aaron borrowed against the land deed. Aaron reveals that the sum is 3 million, leaving Cain even more frustrated and concerned. Cain, overwhelmed with emotion, begins to cry and laments how he has failed the former emperor. Feeling that Aaron has ruined everything the emperor entrusted to him, he despairs over how he will ever explain this failure. Aaron reassures Cain by saying he has a plan. However, Cain, still furious and distraught, shouts back, accusing Aaron of having a plan that will leave them all doomed to live on a small patch of land after everything falls apart. Growing irritated, Aaron abruptly stands up from his chair and, without further explanation, commands Cain to follow him, promising to show him what he has planned. Cain, now confused by Aaron's sudden assertiveness and mysterious promise, is left uncertain about what to expect. A little later, Aaron and Cain step through a portal created by Cheryl, emerging in a frozen land. Once there, Aaron demonstrates his power, which leaves Cain in shock. After showcasing his skills, Aaron confidently asks Cain if he saw it and questions why Cain can't trust his plan. Cain, still processing what he just witnessed, mutters something in a light voice that Aaron doesn't catch. Puzzled, Aaron asks, "What is he saying now?" Trying to understand Cain's reaction to this unexpected display of power, Cain announced that they would commit fully to their plan and promised to contact Moria to secure additional gold. This left Cheryl and Aaron confused and anxious. A few days later, guards allowed a carriage into Bran City. The head of Moria, Grim Moria, emerged from the carriage and surveyed his surroundings, contemplating whether this would soon be his new territory. Grim Moria, known as Blood Coin and a fallen aristocrat, is the owner of the Moria trade group, which amassed wealth through generations of land projects. About 30 years ago, Aaron's late father, the Emperor, enacted the Land Trade Prohibition Act, leading to Duke Moria's purging for his fierce opposition. To recover his family's fortunes, Moria engaged in an illegal private loan business in Javan, targeting small business owners and earning a reputation for brutality. Despite his controversial methods, he became the owner of the Moria Trade Group, one of the top 3 trade groups on the continent. Upon arriving in Bran City, Grim Moria surveyed the area and wondered if it would soon become his territory. Grim Moria's subordinate reminded him that, due to the Land Trade Prohibition Act, purchasing Bran territory directly with money was not possible. However, if Duke Aaron failed to repay his debts, Moria could take over his territory instead. The subordinate saw this as a perfect opportunity for revenge against the late emperor, who had purged Duke Moria. Grim Moria agreed, eager to show Duke Aaron the power and fear of blood coin money. Later, when they met Aaron, Grim Moria and his subordinate both kneeled and offered their respects, with Grim Moria formally addressing Aaron as the Duke. Aaron greeted Grim Moria with a smile, asking if his journey to the north had been comfortable. Grim Moria replied if there are clients who borrow his money, he did even go to the Black Continent, not to mention the north. Of course, the same goes for when he is collecting interest and the principal borrowed. As they exchanged a glance, Aaron thought about another person who wished for his failure, while Grim Moria wondered if Aaron would still be smiling after experiencing a loss in the territory war. During their meeting, Cain asked Moria if he understood why he had been summoned. Moria confirmed that he was aware and stated that the Moria Trade Group would issue a 3 million gold deed on behalf of Aaron for the current bet, presenting the deed from the Javan betting castle. Aaron accepted the letter and trusted Moria's expertise, assuming he had handled all the necessary details. Moria, confused, asked why he had been summoned. Aaron requested an additional 2 million gold loan. Moria expressed concern about lending the money if it involved hiring mercenaries, as this might affect his relationships with other clients. Aaron clarified that he would not use mercenaries but only the soldiers of Bran territory for the war. When Moria asked what the money would be used for, Aaron explained it was for investment purposes, planning to invest in the territory's development in advance, anticipating that winning the territorial battle would eventually bring in more money. Moria thought to himself that even if Eren lost the territory battle, Moria would still benefit by acquiring the territory, and thus he would not lose out. He was puzzled by Eren's apparent confidence in victory. Grim Moria agreed to lend the money if Eren provided a contract for investing in the territory. Eren, smiling, agreed to draw up the contract. However, Cain, visibly angry, objected, warning that if Eren lost the war, he would be burdened with debt. As the treasurer and chief butler, Cain could not approve such a contract. Eren interrupted and stated that they just need to win. Grim Moria, thinking this was a chance to gain lordship and financially entrap Eren, was frustrated by the situation. He wondered if there was anything he could do to make it work. Then he had an idea and offered an interest-free loan. Both Cain and Eren were surprised by this proposal. Grim Moria clarified that he would lend the money without charging interest, alleviating some of the financial burden. He also revealed that he had bet on Eren's victory, hinting at his support. As they were leaving, Grim Moria's subordinate questioned whether he had genuinely placed a bet on Duke Eren's victory. Grim Moria told his subordinate that he never intended to bet on their victory. It was just a lie to get them to borrow his money. His subordinate smiled, admiring Grim Moria's quick thinking and resourcefulness, and commented on his adeptness as the owner of the Moria trade group. Grim Moria then speculated that Eren and Cain likely believed he was supporting their side. Both of them laughed at this. Observing them from the window, Eren asked the old man about the conversation, and Cain inquired for clarification. Eren complimented Cain on his perfect acting, noting the impressive combination of an indefinite loan with zero interest. Cain, slightly blushing, attributed the skill to his use of experience rather than acting. 20 days before the territory war, Rommel organized the elves into formation and commanded them to fire their arrows. However, the arrows fell short of their target. Observing this, Eren criticized their weak performance, pointing out that they would be easily overwhelmed by a cavalry charge before even firing effectively. He then turned to Cain and asked if he had failed to pay for their food. Cain, frustrated, insisted that he had provided enough food for the elves. Their discussion was interrupted by Canis, who pointed out that the short bows the elves were using had a maximum range of less than 100 meters, whereas the range needed on the plains would exceed 200 meters. Eren noted that an ambush would be challenging on the open plain and expressed concern about taking the lead from a distance, especially with the whole Empire watching. He was uneasy about getting directly involved. Canis suggested that while he hoped Eren wouldn't need to intervene, they might need to consider deploying Cheryl depending on the situation. He emphasized that battles involve unpredictable variables and managing these in advance would help them achieve a balanced 1,000 to 1,000 battle as planned. Eren asked Canis how they could control the variables in the situation. Canis responded that they couldn't leave the issue unresolved, since they were uncertain whether the arrows would reach their targets. To address this, he planned to improve the bows to manage the distance variable. However, he added that they needed materials and skilled weapons craftsmen who could produce the enhanced bows quickly. Eren expressed concern about the time constraint, asking if it was possible to assemble the necessary craftsmen and materials within less than 3 weeks. Canis assured him that he could get everything needed within 3 days. When Eren questioned whether 3 days would be sufficient, Canis confirmed it would be, but added that the craftsmen would not be human. This puzzled Eren, while Canis was considering a particular dwarf who would be ideal for the task. That night Canis, in his dragon form, flew to the northernmost region of the Bran territory, where his nest was situated. Upon his arrival, he was greeted by a group of dwarves. One of the dwarves approached Canis, bowed, and presented him with an ornament. The dwarf said, "Welcome back, master. Here is the ornament that he ordered." Canis inspects an ornament and criticizes its poor condition, questioning if the dwarf who made it ran out of time. The dwarf, clearly distressed, pleads for his life, promising to redo the work. Canis, dismissive, discards the ornament, stating it's unworthy of him. He then addresses another dwarf, Keshi, who had been hiding, instructing him to come out. Once Keshi appears, Canis commands him to climb on, indicating that they have someplace to go. Keshi, initially shocked, follows Canis's orders and climbs onto his back. Within 10 minutes, they reach the Bran territory Minotaur labyrinth. In his dragon form, Canis unleashes a fiery attack, killing hundreds of Minotaurs instantly. After the slaughter, Canis informs Keshi that the materials they need are ready. 3 days later, Canis and Keshi arrive at Bran Castle with a carriage full of materials. When Eren sees the horns and the carriage, he inquires about their purpose. Canis explains that the horns are from water buffalo and are intended to improve the bows. He notes that while using these horns makes the bows vulnerable to moisture, it significantly enhances their elasticity and range. Eren questions whether water buffalo are present in their territory. Canis explains to Eren that he acquired the horns cheaply from an international trader who was about to discard them due to a lack of buyers. Eren remarks on the large size of the buffalo horns, which seem unusually big. Noticing Keshi seated on the carriage, Eren inquires if Keshi is the artisan Canis mentioned. Canis directs Keshi to dismount and greet Eren. Keshi jumps down and approaches Eren, addressing him with a surprising level of arrogance by saying, "So you're the Lord?" Is he ready to serve Keshi, the dwarf? This unexpected and presumptuous greeting shocks both Rommel and Canis. Keshi further insults Eren by questioning his audacity to speak informally to the esteemed Lord Canis. Keshi's insolent remarks are abruptly interrupted when Canis grabs her and hurriedly retreats. Shortly afterward, Canis returns to Eren with Keshi in tow and apologizes, explaining that Keshi's lack of proper manners is due to her being a dwarf and requests Eren's forgiveness. Eren responds by saying that he is indifferent to Keshi's manners, as long as she possesses the necessary skills. To everyone's surprise, Eren kneels before Keshi and introduces himself as Eren, the Lord of Bran, pledging to rely on her expertise. Keshi acknowledges Eren's gesture with a casual "yeah," showing her acceptance of the situation. With 2 weeks remaining until the territorial war, Keshi, now granted full authority over weapons manufacturing by Eren, began working on improving bows. Her perfectionist approach and the citizens' frustration with her young, rude demeanor led to occasional conflicts. However, Eren's mediation helped ensure that the weapon upgrades continued relatively smoothly. 3 days before the war, as Canis inspected the battlefield, he reflected on the strategic challenges. He noted that the Emperor was closely observing the war and recognized that both the Lord and his sister were unable to reveal their full power. He realized that merely relying on improved bows wouldn't suffice to efficiently overcome forces twice their size. Observing the muddy ground, Canis contemplated a new strategy and decided to return to Keshi with his ideas. Keshi, half asleep, pleads with Canis to spare her and tries to return to sleep. Canis throws water on her to rouse her, and she again begs for mercy, not fully grasping the situation. Canis, irritated, clarifies that he isn't threatening her life, but orders her to get ready and join him as they head to the battlefield. 3 days later, on the day of the territorial war, soldiers and knights from Count's forces gather at the battlefield, awaiting the arrival of Duke Eren's troops. In one of the tents, Count Ormond comments on the situation, noting that despite a 10% reduction in their forces, he still expects them to win. Count Grey inquires about the amount Count Ormond has bet, to which Ormond responds that he has wagered around 500,000 gold. Ormond had intended to gather more funds but found borrowing from Moria awkward. Count Grey agrees, noting that Moria's money feels uncomfortable. Grey then speculates that after today's battle, merchants like Moria will be eager to align with them, as they are set to gain control of the gold mine. Count Ormond agrees, acknowledging Grey's point. Grey then expresses frustration that the Duke has not yet appeared, implying that the Duke should be intelligent enough to be present. As they observe Eren's forces, Count Omen notices something unusual and asks what's that. Both counts are shocked to see a siege tower, which surprises them. Both counts, upon seeing the siege tower, begin to laugh, mocking the decision to bring such an apparatus to a plains battle. They dismiss it as a sign of desperation and an indication of bringing inappropriate equipment for the situation. At this moment, a mage sent by the Emperor arrives on horseback and positions himself between the two sides. He announces that, under the order of the Lord Emperor, they will now conduct the final formalities. He requests representatives from both sides together for this purpose. Both sides approach the mage, with Count Omen and Count Grey moving from one side and Duke Aaron and his entourage from the other. Upon arrival, they dismount from their horses. Count Omen sarcastically remarks to Duke Aaron, commenting on his appearance and praising his effort for bringing what he calls trash to the battlefield. Duke Aaron responds sharply, thanking Ammon for his concern but retorting that he does not look worse than Ammon's own fat gluttonous face. Count Ammon's anger is provoked by Duke Aaron's retort. The mage steps in to clarify the battle terms once more. He states that if Duke Aaron wins, he will gain control of 2 villages from the Count Union and the gold mine will be recognized as his. Conversely, if the Union wins, Duke Aaron will lose jurisdiction over the 2 territories, and the counts will retain the gold mine. The mage asks if there are any concerns regarding these terms. When no objections are raised, he instructs the representatives to return to their respective sides and prepare for the battle's commencement. As the representatives mounted their horses and prepared to return to their sides, Duke Aaron suddenly turned down and told them to watch your head, while pointing upwards. The counts, puzzled, covered their heads, and sure of Aaron's intent. The mage then cast a spell, signaling the start of the territorial war between Duke Aaron's 1,000 troops and the Count Union's 2,000 forces. Upon returning to his side, Duke Aaron informed Rommel that the commissioner was actually a spy for the Emperor. He also mentioned that neither he nor Cheryl would be participating in the fight and instructed Rommel to follow the plan. Rommel acknowledged his instructions. Rommel ordered the archers to raise your bows, and the elves complied by drawing their bows and shooting arrows. However, the arrows fell short, barely reaching the center of the battlefield. Count Omen, observing this, laughed and mocked Duke Aaron, commenting on the ineffectiveness of the arrows and expressing frustration with what he perceived as Aaron's antics. Omen then offered the cavalry captain 5,000 gold to end the battle before his tea cooled, with an additional 5,000 gold as a bonus if the task was completed promptly. The cavalry captain agreed, assuring Omen that they would finish the battle before his tea was cold. He then instructed his knights to drop their shields and complete the task as quickly as possible. Upon hearing the captain's orders, all the cavalry knights discarded their shields. The cavalry captain rallied his troops, urging them to pummel those bastards and leading them in a charge. As the enemy cavalry advanced towards them, Rommel prepared to respond. He instructed the archers to ready angled fire. The elves then discarded their old bows, equipped their newly made bows, and prepared their arrows. Once the enemy was within range, Rommel commanded the elves to fire. The new bows significantly extended the range of the arrows, allowing them to hit the advancing cavalry. Realizing they were in a trap, the cavalry captain ordered his troops to run into the arrow fire. He then instructed them to run horizontally and spread out to the sides to minimize casualties. In response, Rommel ordered the siege tower to be readied. The soldiers on the siege tower prepared for action. When the enemy was within range, Rommel gave the command to fire. A net with large, heavy spears was launched from the siege tower, effectively trapping and isolating the cavalry within it. Inside the net, the trapped enemy cavalry struggled to free themselves, with some trying to cut through the metal with their swords. They exchanged frustrated comments about the metal being too tough. The captain urged his men to find a way out and remain calm. At that moment, an arrow struck the captain's helmet, causing him concern as he noticed elves already their arrows to fire at them. Rommel remarked he guessed they weren't watching their head, before the elves fired their arrows into the net, causing significant casualties. Seeing the dire situation, Count Grey became agitated and confronted Count Almon, accusing him of poor judgment for telling the cavalry to drop their shields. Count Almon defensively responded, "Hey, how was he supposed to know this was going to happen?" Count Grey ordered infantry to rescue the trapped cavalry. Rommel responded by directing his forces to attack the enemy infantry, aiming to prevent them from aiding the cavalry. Rommel and his cavalry advanced to engage the infantry. In reaction, Count Grey instructed his archers to target Rommel and his cavalry. As the enemy archers fired arrows, Bianca, accompanied by his holy knight, began to pray to Goddess Vivian for protection. Holy light enveloped them, creating a shield that deflected the arrows. The sudden appearance of the protective shield shocked both counts, who exclaimed in surprise. Meanwhile, Aaron and Canis observed the scene with smiles, seemingly pleased with the turn of events. The Count Alliance's forces include 470 archers, 1,000 infantry, and 500 cavalry trapped in the net. In contrast, Aaron's forces consist of 200 cavalry, 200 archers, and 600 infantry. Count Grey commanded his infantry to attack the enemy's cavalry on the right side. Rommel, surprised by this maneuver, quickly adjusted his strategy. He ordered half of his cavalry to follow him, while the rest dealt with the enemy cavalry. As the battle commenced, Rommel's cavalry engaged the 1,000 Count infantry. Rommel's unit inflicted significant damage, reducing the morale of the Count's infantry soldiers. The soldiers were visibly shaken as Rommel led his cavalry, creating a path through the chaos. An enemy cavalry knight managed to escape from the net and briefly felt relieved, but he was swiftly killed by Lady Bianca. As Rommel's forces continued to engage the infantry, Bianca's unit focused on the enemy cavalry. Both counts, seeing the situation deteriorate, urgently turned to the mercenary mages and demanded that they intervene. The mages began casting a spell and launched a magic projectile. Aaron and Canis were taken aback by the sight. The magic projectile was fired at Rommel's cavalry unit and struck them unexpectedly, causing surprise and likely disrupting their operations. Aaron, concerned by the magic attack, called out to Rommel. However, as the dust cleared, it was revealed that Rommel and his unit had survived thanks to the holy shield provided by Bianca. Aaron breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Rommel was unharmed, though the shield soon broke down. Realizing the danger, Rommel thought to himself that the situation was perilous. He instructed his cavalry to ignore the enemy infantry and prepare to escape. However, as they tried to turn around, they found themselves completely surrounded by the enemy infantry. The infantry soldiers declared, "They are not going anywhere. This place will be all of their graves," effectively trapping Rommel and his unit. Both counts laughed as Rommel's unit became surrounded. Observing the situation, Aaron noted that while Rommel was a master-level swordsman, his position was becoming increasingly perilous. He ordered his infantry to charge and save the Knight Order captain and the cavalry. As the infantry charged to aid Rommel, Aaron turned to Canis and said he planned to personally rescue Rommel. He asked Canis to handle the mages in his absence. Canis warned that the Emperor's spy was present, but Aaron insisted that Rommel's safety was the priority. He assured Canis that he would address the spy himself and instructed Canis not to worry excessively. As Aaron moved away, he called out for his sister. Meanwhile, Canis directed the archers to deploy the catapult. They removed it from the siege towers, positioned it, and loaded a rocks onto it. Canis then ordered them to fire. The catapult launched the rocks, which struck and killed many enemy cavalrymen trapped in the net, reducing their number from 500 to 253. The attack further decreased the count to 197 cavalrymen. Seeing the impact, Count Grey instructed the mercenary mages to break the rocks. The mages responded by casting magic projectiles at the rock, shattering it into pieces. Seeing the effectiveness of the catapult attack, Count Grey laughed and mocked the effort as insignificant compared to magic. He then instructed the mages to target the catapult itself rather than the projectiles it was launching. One of the mages acknowledged that hitting the catapult was possible but would take some time. Count Grey agreed, deciding to prepare for a large-scale attack. Canis, observing the scene, reflected on the situation. He noted that the enemy had twice the number of troops and mages, and he was surprised by the complexity of the situation compared to his initial expectations. He wondered about the whereabouts and actions of the Lord, concerned about the evolving battle dynamics. Canis saw Aaron and greeted him, noting the substantial mana energy around him and reflecting on how unusual it was for a human to possess such power. He speculated whether its Cheryl's illusionary magic was at play, as he had not immediately recognized human illusion magic while he was not in his true form. Canis then observed Aaron emerging from the forest, dressed differently and wielding a dagger, and thought to himself that Aaron seemed to be continually revealing new tricks. As Aaron moved closer to the soldiers, he considered the need for caution despite the spy being at a distance. He began searching for an item and soon found a helmet. Putting it on, he thought to himself, "Here he comes, hang in there a little longer," as he prepared to assist Rommel in the battle. This marks the conclusion of the second part of this manhwa. The third part will be uploaded soon, so remember to like and subscribe to the channel for future update. Leave comments to share your experience. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video.